Good afternoon. Welcome to the Big Show. The Big Show comes at you every single day about 5 o'clock, maybe right around 5 o'clock. Big Show brought to you by FanDuel Casino and also by Archie's on Carson Street. We'll talk about both in a little bit, FanDuel and Archie's. We thank them for their sponsorship. Now then, let's get right into the stupidest topic of the week. Okay? I mean, can we get any dumber? Can we get any dumber? And of course, the topic is then fueled by people like Ben Roethlisberger, who on his podcast was talking about, the field surface and everything else. Can we get any dumber? If you're still, read my lips, listen to me, and I'll probably say it about 3 times. If you're still among the people dumb enough to blame Pitt for whatever is going on with the surface at Heinz Field, you're an idiot. Or you just hate Pitt. One or the other has to be true. Pitt is low-hanging fruit, I know, and if they're easy to bag on, and look at their attendance and all this other crap, fine. But if you're pointing the finger for what's going on at Heinz Field anywhere other than the culprit, you're an idiot. Let's start here, okay? If I was Roger Goodell, in other words, I was the king of the NFL, you're from that movie, the HNIC of the NFL or whatever. If I was in charge, the guy, let me tell you this much right now. That field would never look like that because I've got millions and millions and millions and millions of dollar assets in the terms of players whose health and the league's health depends on them being able to run without having, their ankle screwed up or their knee screwed up because the field is terrible. And it's not just specific to Acrisure Stadium. If I was the king of the NFL, Roger Goodell, I would tell you this much right now. That surface would never look like that, not once. I got a multi-billion-dollar industry with access to the world's foremost in field, growing grass and field, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to allow a stadium field to still 30 years later, 20 years, however the hell old it is, 23, 24 years later, I'm going to still there. We're going to have these problems? No. So let's start there. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the bottom line is, if you're Roger Goodell in the NFL, this should never happen. And I would tell all 32 of the stadiums, here's the deal. The field surface is always in perfect, pristine playing conditions for every game, or I'm going to send my own crew in there. And your crew can get the hell out of the way, and we're going to fix the field the right way. And it might even be to the point where you say, listen, there is, this cutting edge combination of grass and turf that they've worked on, that they continue to update and upgrade, that is supposedly safe. It's supposedly cut down on injuries, on turf injuries by like 80%. It's something that, we need to look at it for your field because you can't grow grass and keep it there. The Steelers are one of about 5 or 6 NFL teams that share a field with a college team. So please stop. This isn't a problem. This isn't about Pitt. And here's the other thing. It'd be one thing if, Pitt played on the surface on Saturday and it rained or something and, Pitt played and chewed up the surface really bad and all that other stuff. Pitt had the Steelers game against the Browns the other day was 8 days after Pitt last played on that surface. 8 days. There's no excuse. 8 days. Again, there's no excuse. What you're telling me is you had 8 days to get the field ready and couldn't. Again, if I'm Roger Goodell, I come in and basically say, your entire field crew's got to go. And I'm going to hire your next field crew. That's how you do it if you really care in a multi-billion-dollar industry. This isn't like some high school, right? This isn't some high school program where, you know, they have a budget shortage and, you know, they have to figure out ways that they can cut the budget a little bit. And so they have to operate on a shoestring budget for sports, and they just don't have the money to go fix their field. That's different. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a multi-billion with a B, a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the guys that run and play on that field are millionaires, some of them worth 20, 30, 40, 50 million based on their, you know, their contracts. And I'm gonna allow a field to look like that? No. This is on the NFL, the Rooneys, and whoever is in charge of the field in terms of the maintenance of the field. That's who it's on. Nobody else, nobody less. That's who it's on. Those people are responsible for it. It's not about the Steelers playing on it. It's not about Pitt playing on it. Nothing. It's about the people that are charged with making sure that field is good and is in good shape and is in pristine condition. That group has failed. So if you're going to blame Pitt just because you want to blame Pitt, that's fine, but you just sound like an idiot because it has nothing to do with Pitt and everything to do with the fact that whoever is in charge of that field and the maintenance of that field, and that includes the NFL, because there's 32 of those fields around that they should be on top of and making sure that every one of them is up to, you know, the snuff and is good. Period. Has nothing to do with Pitt. Nothing at all. Again, the Steelers are one of about 6 NFL teams that share their field with a college team. Okay? So the whole, well, it's Pitt's fault. That's just a lazy, silly. That's a lazy, silly, nonsensical scapegoat. There's no reason that field, after 8 days, there's no reason that field should not have been in pristine condition. One like you only had 1 day or less than 24 hours. You know, Pitt played at 8 o'clock on Saturday, and the game was at 1. No, 8 days. So to me, if you want to, you know, blame Pitt, again, you just are somebody who either is clueless or you just don't like Pitt. Either way. That's number one. Number two, the second part of what Ben Roethlisberger said, you know, well, Pitt should build an on-campus stadium for, you know, 35,000 seat on-campus stadium. First of all, 35,000 is not enough for Pitt fans. It'd have to be like 48,000, 49,000 fans, number one. Number two, you build a 35,000 seat stadium, and guess what? All of a sudden, you become a lot less attractive for some of those bigger name schools that don't mind coming to Pitt because they can bring a lot of fans because there's a big stadium there. There's a lot of money to be had. Bottom line. So forget about all the other stuff. Now let's go one step further. Let's go one step further. This idea that you need an on-campus stadium for Pitt is stupid. Because you want to know the one section they sell out every game. You want to know the one section or allotment of tickets that they sell out for every single game. You want to know who that is? The student section. You know, they sell 10, 12, 13, 14,000 student tickets every week. And the students would be the one that would benefit from an on-campus stadium. And guess what? They're the ones that show up. Most of the people complaining and bitching about an on-campus stadium, oh, it would help attendance, and that's where we should be. Most of them live in, you know, in the suburbs somewhere. You can't get people in and out of Oakland. There's no real estate in Oakland. It makes absolutely zero sense. So to me, whatever we're talking about here, this conversation has become one of the dumbest conversations of the entire week, and most of the entire year, actually, and mostly because people are clueless. And, Ben, I love Ben's podcast because he'll say a lot of things and, mixes it up and gives you fodder to talk about throughout the week. But the reality is, this is silly. Absolutely silly. It really is. It is not feasible to have a football stadium in Oakland. And one of the reasons I know this is because the last athletic director did a feasibility study of sorts to see if it's even something that they could entertain. But again, there's no infrastructure from the highways to get you in and out of Oakland quickly. Number one. Number two, there's no place to park. Not that many people. Number three, there's no real estate to put a stadium somewhere. No matter what you want to do. I guess, technically, if you wanted to just take Shenley Park away from the city and say, hey, we're going to put it there, maybe that works. I don't know. The reality is there's just nowhere to go because you're in the middle of a city. Maybe, if you want to take over half the Hill District, I don't know, maybe. You can't do that, though. People live there. You can't displace people. So it's just one of those stupid discussions that comes up about every 2 or 3 years. Pitt, when they win, their attendance is fine. The people complaining about on-campus stadium isn't the students because they show up for the games. Period. But again, I'll say it one more time for the cheap seats. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. One of the greatest marketing arms in the world. The most powerful brand in sports is that shield. Roger Goodell, then by extension, is one of the most powerful men in sports. They spend millions and millions and millions on players. And they can't figure out how to get the field right. Come on, man. That's the problem. It's just become such a stupid, really stupid, what I would call discussion that I can't even wrap my head around why there are still people who just want to continue to go down a failing, losing, silly road, as opposed to actually pointing the finger where it needs to be pointed, which is at the NFL and at the Steelers. Period. At the NFL and at the Steelers. And, that's where it belongs. And I don't think there's any question in my mind that that's where, we should be talking about the problem. So that's where it is. It's just where it is. Anyway, let's move on. That's just one of my biggest pet peeves. The NFL should be able to maintain 32 fields and make sure they're all playable and they're all in working condition all the time. Second up, Mike Tomlin meets with the media, says basically, that he can't understand Joe Flacco, the trade of Joe Flacco from the Browns to the Bengals. Some people think there's some sort of controversial mix in this, that he shouldn't have said that. I don't get that. Who cares? He basically put it out there, and this is how you do it. in sort of a passive-aggressive way, openly questioning what the Browns were doing and what their goal was on this one. Honestly, that's what he was doing. He's not sitting here, you know what I mean, ripping the Bengals. In fact, he said it makes sense for the Bengals. He's basically saying, why are the Browns helping a team in the division? That being said, trades happen all the time within divisions. That being said, it's not the Steelers' business to worry about who's trading who. This isn't fantasy football. But I think the larger issue for Mike Tomlin is that, you know, a week and a half ago, he was looking at a Thursday night game against Jake Browning, which would have been an easy night at the office for the Steelers. He was looking at the real possibility of the fact that the Steelers would probably, in some ways, they're probably I just say it like this, that they were going to have a really good opportunity to win the game with almost relative ease. And instead, they are basically now in a bad place because they actually have to play against a quarterback who's competent. But the reality is, go beat him. You beat him a bunch of times. Yeah, I mean, obviously you'd rather see Jake Browning. I think one of the biggest things there is with Joe Flacco, he has seen everything you can throw at him. And I'm not just talking about the Steelers, I'm talking about the NFL. And the guy's played, 200-plus NFL games. Been in the league, 18, 19 years, whatever it is. He's a guy who really understands the game. He understands defenses, understands offenses. He will challenge the Steelers. He'll challenge them with those two receivers they got. And, you know, they're not going to be able to fool him like they would a guy like Jake Browning. But physically, they should be able to beat the Bengals. Should be able to beat them up front on the offensive line. You know, they should be able to go get them. They should be able to hit Flacco a bunch of times. You know, I think that's the bigger issue to me. Yes, your game got a little bit more difficult because Joe Flacco is better than Jake Browning. Yes. If Joe Flacco is able to, hold down the fort, and there are some games coming up that look winnable for the Bengals, and if they can win this one, they have a shot maybe to hang in there long enough that Burrow gets back and now they have a chance to go to the playoffs. Okay. Maybe. But I will basically say that, you really, really, if you're the Steelers, just go win this game. Period. Just go win this game. And that's what we said is probably the best example of it. But, I get what Mike Tomlin's trying to get at from the standpoint of he's basically saying, hey, it's a weird trade to me. By the same token, if I'm the Browns, my counter to that is, well, you know what? Our season's pretty much over. We're done. We stink. So we're going to make trades now to try and, get assets or, get rid of players who maybe aren't going to factor into the future. I mean, to be honest, if I was the Browns, and of course teams don't ever do this, if I was the Browns, obviously I'd have fired Kevin Stefanski before, already. I would probably trade Myles Garrett for as many, whatever you can get for him. Trade anybody else that it really is like a top level player that costs money, and then use the picks and trade them for picks, and then try and just use those picks to continue to rebuild. I mean, they've got a pretty good rookie class. Just keep trying to rebuild, so maybe a year or two from down the road, you have a shot. Maybe Deshaun Watson comes back and is actually able to play, and now all of a sudden your team looks a whole lot better. I mean, I'm not saying – I'm just saying the Browns should be trading people and getting rid of assets that aren't going to help them in the future. That's just me. Some people don't subscribe to that theory. They don't think it's the right thing to do. But if you're the Browns, that's your best option. It has to be your best option. Anyway, FanDuel Casino, get the FanDuel app. Do what you have to do to download it. Gives you an opportunity to bet right from your phone, right from your computer, your device, whatever. You can bet on a number of things. You can do same game parlays. You can do parlays. You can do teasers. You can bet, over unders. You can bet straight bets, money lines. You can bet with the spread. Tonight, for instance, there's a baseball game on. It is the Blue Jays and the Mariners. It's in Seattle. Very interesting to me is that Seattle's up 2-0 in this series, and Toronto basically was a team that just absolutely obliterated the Yankees in the ALDS. So, this is basically, the game of the series. Seattle wins, they go up 3-0. It's probably over. If you want to bet on these teams, however, tonight, you want to bet on Seattle, you got to lay $130 to win $100. If you want to bet on Toronto, it's pretty much even money. Over-under is 7.5. Run line is 1.5. So if you were to take, for instance, Toronto plus the 1.5, meaning, they have to basically lose by 1 or less, tie or win, you are going to get, you're going to have to lay 200 to win 100. If you want to give Seattle minus 1.5, meaning they got to win by 2 or more, you get you can win $165 with a $100 bet. So you can do all kinds of different ways you can bet when it comes to the FanDuel app. Make sure you get on it, put it, download it on your device. That way you're always able to bet with a couple of clicks of the finger, a couple of clicks, and the next thing you know, you are able to make a bet on FanDuel Casino. Also, get down to Archie's. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday, home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's on Carson Street in the South Side and enjoy great food, great drinks, everything else. Get the beer, get everything, get the wings. Go to Archie's and get it. And when you get there, tell Archie I sent you and that, you know what, you're ready to enjoy some of the best wings in Pittsburgh. Back to the Steelers and Joe Flacco. I think one of the things that's really interesting about Joe Flacco is that he is a guy who is probably not going to be a Hall of Famer. He has won, honestly, a Super Bowl. He's had probably more success than a lot of guys. But here's what's interesting to me. Joe Flacco has a record of 11-11 against the Steelers. That's pretty interesting to me. He's a guy who basically has figured it out in terms of he's had some success against the Steelers. He's won a few games against the Steelers. But he's 11-11. And here's the other thing. If you look at what he's done, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he's played 22 games against the Steelers. And he's got, 12 touchdown passes. I mean, if you think about it, is it 27 touchdown passes in 22 games. So that's not too bad if you think about it, because, I think you want to average more than one per game, and he's averaging about 1.2. But the other part of it is he's only thrown 12 picks. So, he's a guy who's protected the ball for the most part against the Steelers. He's a guy that's pretty smart. He's a guy that's a pretty good player, even at his advanced age. again, he makes the game a lot more difficult for the Steelers against the Bengals. And that includes against the secondary of the Steelers because the Bengals have two of the best receivers in football. The Bengals have two of the best receivers in football, in Higgins and Jamar Chase. So I feel like if you think about it that way, those two guys are going to put a lot of pressure on the Steelers secondary. And with a guy like Joe Flacco, who's got a good arm, look, listen, he can't move. He's a statue. You want to blitz him. You want to get after him. You want to knock him around a little bit. By the same token, he's pretty smart. He's pretty savvy. And he's not quite going to be like this Dillon Gabriel you just played, who was kind of a deer in headlights, and you were able just to beat him up. If you blitz Flacco too many times, you're going to get burnt once or twice. So I think that you got to mix it up and really kind of be balanced in how you approach it. But I think that's kind of what Mike Tomlin was talking about, the difference with a guy like Joe Flacco, is that you've got a veteran guy. I do find it amazing that you've got two quarterbacks who are 40-something years old. So you're talking about two guys who add up to about 81 years old, right? Actually, I think 82. So that's just really, to me, what it is you've got two old quarterbacks, and I think that both of them are pretty smart. Both of them are, able to, break down what defenses are doing and all that other good stuff. By the way, here's a funny quote that came up from Dillon Gabriel. They asked him about playing against the Steelers. You'll love this one. And he said, "My mom used to beat my ass when I was a kid, so I don't think anything will live up to what my mom did. I'm just playing around, but I'm good." That's pretty funny. Of course, nowadays you can't make jokes like that. I'm sure, some group in Cleveland will, attack him for making light of child abuse or something. That's just how silly we are as a society. But that's reality there. I think the bottom line is if the Steelers are able to get to Flacco and hit him a little bit, they'll be able to win this game. I don't know that it's going to take 28 points to win this game. I think that the Steelers score 20. That'll probably be enough because I feel like the Bengals are not going to be able to score that many. They have not been able to really sustain a lot of drives. I think one thing you do have to realize is last week they were a lot better in the second half when Joe Flacco got comfortable. Because remember, he only had 3 days of preparation or whatever. So, by the middle of the second half, he started to figure it out a little bit. They got better. In fact, I think they scored all their points in the second half. But we'll see. To me, if you're the Steelers, and this is what I always say about these Thursday night games, you have one goal in this game. Two, actually. One, walk out of the stadium with one more point than the Bengals. The hell with style points. The hell with worrying about how you get there. All you care about on a Thursday night game, you got guys banged up. You're still coming off a Sunday game. All you care about on a Thursday night, when you've had a day and a half to prepare, basically, and your guys are barely even healed from their last game, walk out of the stadium with one more point than the other team. That's it. The second thing is walk out of the stadium with no new injuries. And if you do that, it's a successful week. If you do that, honestly, when Adam and I are on tomorrow night after the game, when you do that, when we're on after the game tomorrow night, you are going to basically hear me say this was a successful game, regardless of what it looks like, regardless of how ugly it might be or how close it might be. All you got to do is walk out of the stadium with one more point than the Bengals have. That's what you're trying to do on a Thursday night. Other games, we talk about style points and issues and all that other stuff. But in this game, you're just kind of throwing a game plan together and hoping for the best. They're better than the Bengals, so go win. That's what I say. I will be on tomorrow after the game, along with Adam, and we will break it all down for you in very many ways. But we'll do that tomorrow night after the game, after the Steelers play at the Bengals. Until such time, when we do meet again, which, again, is hopefully is tomorrow night, enjoy your night.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.